you're a Confucian scholar in Chang'an, 690 AD. For 7 years, you've watched Empress Dowager Wu rule China, while her son, Emperor Ruizong, sits powerless on the throne. This was already scandalous. A woman wielding imperial authority violated every principle of Confucian governance. But today, you're being summoned to the palace for an announcement that will shatter 2,000 years of tradition. You arrive at the throne room. It's packed with officials, all confused, all nervous. Then Wu Zetian enters. She doesn't stand behind the screen as empresses are supposed to. She doesn't sit beside the throne, as Empress Dowagers sometimes do. She walks directly to the throne itself and sits. Then she speaks. The Tang Dynasty is ended. I establish the Zhou Dynasty. I am Emperor. Not Empress, not Empress Dowager, not Regent, Emperor. And you realize you're witnessing something that has never happened in 4,000 years of Chinese civilization. A woman is declaring herself the Son of Heaven. Before we go any further, you need to understand something about Wu Zetian's self-proclamation as emperor in 690. The popular version treats it as the inevitable climax of her rise to power, as if becoming emperor was simply the next step. That version erases the magnitude of what she was attempting. In Chinese political theory, the emperor was not just a ruler, he was the Son of Heaven, the intermediary between earth and the divine, the source of all legitimate authority. And he was not a generic pronoun. It was literal. Only men could be sons of heaven. This wasn't just tradition. That was cosmological law, woven into Confucian philosophy, Buddhist scripture, Taoist texts. This, a woman to declare herself emperor, was not just breaking a rule. It was claiming to overturn the natural order of the universe. And Wu Zetian did it anyway. It was the story of how she justified the unjustifiable, how she used religion, propaganda, and terror to make the impossible seem inevitable. This is me show you how Wu Zetian seized the throne. The video 1, we watched Wu rise from concubine to empress. In video 2, we saw her consolidate power, eliminate rivals, and rule through puppet emperors. But by 690, she faced a problem. She had all the power, but power without legitimacy is unstable. As long as she ruled through her son, her authority was legally derivative. If Ruizong died, if he was overthrown, if he simply grew a spine and challenged her, her position would collapse. She needed her own independent source of legitimacy. She needed to be emperor. But how do you justify something that has never happened? That violates every assumption your civilization is built on. Wu Zetian's answer: you rewrite the assumptions. She began with religion. In 688, 2 years before she proclaimed herself emperor, Wu Zetian ordered the translation and dissemination of a Buddhist text called the Great Cloud Sutra. This text, conveniently, contained a prophecy. It predicted that 600 years after the Buddha's death, a female bodhisattva would be reincarnated as a universal monarch who would rule with perfect wisdom and justice. Wu Zetian's propagandists calculated that the timing of this prophecy coincided exactly with Wu Zetian's reign. What an extraordinary coincidence. The Great Cloud Sutra was distributed to every Buddhist monastery in China. Monks were ordered to preach its message. Wu Zetian was the prophesied female bodhisattva. Her rule was divinely ordained. But Buddhism alone wasn't enough. China was officially Confucian, and Confucianism explicitly stated that women should not govern. So Wu Zetian needed Confucian justification too. She commissioned scholars to comb through classical texts, looking for any precedent of female rulers. They found a few. Legendary figures from China's mythical past, queens who had ruled briefly during periods of chaos. Wu Zetian's scholars presented these as evidence that female rule was not unprecedented, just rare. Then she went further. She ordered the creation of new characters in the Chinese writing system, characters that represented her reign, her authority, her divine mandate. One of these characters was her personal name character. She renamed herself Zhao, written with a character that combined the symbols for sun and moon above the character for heaven. The message was clear. Wu Zetian encompassed all celestial power. She was above the normal distinctions of gender. She was divine. But propaganda and religious justification weren't enough. Wu Zetian also needed to eliminate opposition, and there was opposition. In 684, shortly after she had deposed Emperor Zhongzong and installed Ruzong as a puppet, a prince named Li Jingye launched a rebellion. Li Jingye was a member of the Tang imperial family. He raised an army and issued a declaration calling Wu Zetian a usurper, a murderer, and a violator of natural law. His manifesto was brutal. It accused her of killing emperors, murdering her own sons, corrupting the dynasty, and destroying Confucian order. The rebellion was militarily weak. Wu Zetian's forces crushed it within months, but the manifesto was politically dangerous. It articulated everything the Confucian establishment believed, but was too afraid to say. Wu Zetian's response was to make fear more powerful than principle. After crushing Li Jingye's rebellion, she didn't just execute him. She executed his entire family, his relatives, his associates, anyone who had supported him, even tangentially. Then she created an institution that would define her reign, the surveillance state. Wu Zetian established a system of secret informants. Officials called the cruel officials were given authority to investigate, arrest, and torture anyone suspected of disloyalty. People were encouraged to denounce their neighbors, their colleagues, even their family members. The system was designed to create paranoia. No one knew who was an informant. No one knew who was listening. No one dared speak against Wu Zetian because speech could mean death. Thousands were arrested. Hundreds were executed. Some were guilty of actual treason. Many were innocent victims of false accusations. It didn't matter. The point wasn't justice. The point was control through fear. And it worked. By 690, opposition to Wu Zetian had been driven completely underground. The Confucian bureaucracy was terrified. The aristocratic families were silent. The military was loyal, and Wu Zetian was ready to make her final move. In September 690, Wu Zetian held a grand ceremony in the palace. Officials were summoned. Buddhist monks and Taoist priests were assembled. The entire court was present. Wu Zetian's son, Emperor Ruizong, stood before the throne, and he read a prepared statement. He declared that his mother, Wu Zetian, was the reincarnation of the prophesied bodhisattva, that she was divinely ordained to rule, that he, as a mere mortal and an unworthy son, was abdicating the throne in her favor. He wasn't really abdicating. He had never ruled. He was simply formalizing what everyone already knew. But the ceremony gave it legal and religious legitimacy. Then Wu Zetian ascended the throne. She declared the end of the Tang Dynasty. She proclaimed the founding of the Zhou Dynasty. And she took the title Huangdi, Emperor. It's not new Huangdi, female emperor, just emperor. She was not claiming to be a woman who ruled like an emperor. She was claiming to be an emperor, full stop, with all the authority, divine mandate, and cosmic legitimacy that title carried. This was the moment. The culmination of 52 years of calculation, manipulation, and ruthlessness. Wu Zetian, born to a merchant family, kidnapped into a harem at 14, exiled to a monastery at 25, was now the Emperor of China. The only woman in 4,000 years to hold that title. But proclaiming yourself emperor is one thing. Ruling as emperor is another. Because now Wu Zetian had to actually govern. And governing meant dealing with threats, both external and internal. External threats. The Tibetan Empire was expanding. The Turkic Khaganate was raiding the northern borders. The Korean kingdoms were unstable. Wu Zetian launched military campaigns against all of them. Some succeeded, some failed, but she proved she could command armies, manage logistics, and defend the empire's borders. Internal threats were more complicated. The Confucian bureaucracy still resented her. They obeyed out of fear, not loyalty. The aristocratic families still considered her an illegitimate upstart. And there were always rumors. Rumors that princes were plotting to restore the Tang Dynasty. Rumors that generals were preparing coups. Rumors that Buddhist monks or Taoist priests were spreading sedition. Wu Zetian's response was more terror. The surveillance state expanded. The cruel officials became more powerful. Torture was used routinely to extract confessions. Historians estimate that during Wu Zetian's 15-year reign as emperor, thousands were executed for treason, real or imagined. Some were guilty, many were not. And this is where Wu Zetian's legacy becomes complicated. Because while she ruled through terror, she also governed effectively. She expanded the imperial examination system, making government positions more meritocratic. She promoted talented officials regardless of their family background. She invested in infrastructure, roads, canals, irrigation systems. She patronized Buddhism, building temples and monasteries across the empire. She economy grew. Trade flourished. Population increased. By most objective measures, China prospered under her rule, but prosperity built on terror has a cost. The surveillance state she created eroded trust. Families turned on each other. Officials lived in constant fear. And when Wu Zetian grew old, when her grip on power began to weaken, all that fear turned into resentment. The system she had built to protect her would eventually destroy her. Wu Zetian ruled as emperor from 690 to 705, 15 years. She was the only woman in Chinese history to hold that title. She proved that a woman could command armies, govern an empire, and wield absolute power. But she also proved something darker, that achieving the impossible sometimes requires becoming monstrous. The question historians have wrestled with for 13 centuries is whether the achievement justified the methods. Was Wu Zetian a visionary who broke gender barriers and ruled effectively? Or was she a tyrant who murdered her way to power and governed through terror? The answer is probably both. She was a brilliant administrator and a brutal autocrat, a religious patron and a mass murderer, a champion of meritocracy and a destroyer of dissent. She contained contradictions because power itself is contradictory. And the higher you climb, the more contradictions you accumulate. Wu Zetian climbed higher than any woman in Chinese history. In 705, she would fall. In video 4, we'll explore Wu Zetian's final years, the coup that deposed her, and what her legacy means for understanding female power and systems designed to prevent it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave a comment. Can effective governance justify authoritarian methods? Or does terror always delegitimize power, no matter how successful?